Should college be free?
The question is, how am I going to pay for school?
The idea that college could be free is a myth. Nothing is ever free.
It is a fundamental right to be able to go to college.
Do you think elementary school should be free?
We're not working in if. This is a plan-based debate. You need to work in definiteness.
Before I actually introduce a moderator of this debate, I want to tell you, he plays basketball, football, and runs track for Lake Charles Charter Academy. He is a tenacious 14-year-old 8th grader, and he maintains a 4.0 grade point average. He is not shy about telling the story about why he's here. He will tell you that his father is incarcerated, his mother is deceased, but he says that he is determined to work hard and never allow where he has been to decide where he is going. Even more important than the summary that he prepared for, in a debate we had back in October, after the debate was over, KPLC was interviewing some young people, and I was kind of watching as this young man was being interviewed by a reporter. And there's one thing that he said that stuck out more than anything I've heard since we started this a year ago. He said, you know, people think we belong in orange coveralls. We're better than that. And that's the way it is. We started out with 20 young men a year ago. We're up to 80 right now. And our target is about 125 young men. And we're currently developing a ladies program. So we're looking forward to that because these young people are the answer to a lot of the problems in this nation right now. And these young people are going to be some of the best leaders this community's ever had. So without anything else, welcome to the future. And it's taking place today. Impact Agency member and debate moderator, Mr. Eric Bellany.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. My name is Eric Bellany, and I will be the moderator for the Impact Agency's 2019 Great Debate. First and foremost, I would like to give a blanket of thank yous to the audience, the debaters, and our judges. We can all agree that it is truly a great. Thank you all for being here. And I can honestly say that it's wonderful to see these great young men and these prestigious lawyers go head to head in a very interesting and serious topic. And I can tell you now, tonight, everyone will leave with the idea, should college be free or should college not be free? And without further ado, I will introduce Ann Mariah Ford presenting the opening speech for the affirmative team. The purpose of this speech is to build the affirmative case.
College tuition should be free. Not only should it be free, it must be free. As many of you are out here, I'm sure a lot of you may know someone or have a loved one or relative who is preparing for high school graduation. And as they're preparing for that joyous moment to commemorate their achievements and all of their accomplishments throughout their matriculation in school, oftentimes parents as well as those students are faced with a daunting question. And that question is, how am I going to pay for school? How am I going to pay for college? And that brings me to our first point, which is the system is broken. Okay? Requiring students to pay the cost of tuition has created a glass ceiling that has forced over 2/3 of college graduates to be faced with student loan debt, an insurmountable amount of student loan debt. According to the Student Debt Relief USA News, statistics show that a total student loan debt here in America is $1.48 trillion. Not only that, it's even more heart-wrenching to know that over 81% of African American college graduates are faced with having to resort to incurring student loans in order to matriculate through school and to be a productive citizen in society as relates to being able to gain employment and pour back into our communities. Again, the system is broken as it de-incentivizes people from getting an equal education. It limits their access to their fundamental rights. Their fundamental right as they're faced with so much debt. And that brings me to the second point, which is a free college education and tuition is a fundamental right that should be afforded to us through our Constitution. Our Constitution of the United States of America affords us unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Pursuing happiness, pursuing that education, that fundamental right. Education has now become a basic line in terms of education, generally speaking. Before we looked at primary education, secondary education, and that was all that it took a long time ago. But oftentimes parents will hear you say a lot of times that, you know what, you need more than just a high school degree now, or high school diploma rather. You have to go further and matriculate and get that degree. But of course, there is that block, that roadblock that separates a lot of individuals now, which is college tuition. And as I move on here to our third point, which is how cost effective it is for there to be free college tuition. It is extremely cost effective. As we look back in history, we see things that have been created like the GI Bill, as well as TOPS education. And we can see how investing in free college tuition has not only been the pride of our state, but it also can be the pride of our country. As we also go further in terms of cost effectiveness, my colleagues will outline how in history the government has paid for Pell Grants as well as student loans an amount that totals an insurmountable total, rather, that if they were to use that money to pay for college tuition, then students would be facing this amount of debt as they move on into having their lives and their careers. And lastly, I'd like to outline this, which is the most important thing that you may hear me say this evening, and that is having a free college tuition is a matter of national security. In order for the United States to maintain our status as a superpower, the superpower, our young people must maintain their uninhibited right to a free college education, which is, again, a national security concern.
We have Mr. Leonard Brown.
Good evening. My name is Leonard Brown, and today I will be arguing that college should not be free. Now, judges, there needs to be some groundwork laid for this debate. We need to define the resolution because it can mean anything. Now, that was the affirmative job, but I took it upon myself to do so. We define the word should as meaning it must happen. The affirmative must present a plan, which they did not do, and its time frame. The word believe is a morality word. Not only must the affirmative present a plan, but they must tell why it needs to be implemented. The word college should be defined as a 4-year institution, no more and no less. And we define the word free, meaning no cost at all for anyone. Addressing what the affirmative said, we concede that the system is broken. We all know this. But the second point, that free college is a fundamental right, rights can be interpreted And nowhere in the Constitution does it say college is a fundamental right. Contention 1. Let's set the record straight. Free is never free. The idea that college could be free is a myth. Nothing is ever free. Somebody is paying for it. In order for college to be paid for, the government would need to increase taxes to pay for others' education. Judges, as we can see that college will need to be paid for by taxpayers, we see that this plan could not work. Contention 2. Free college floods the job market and it devalues the degree as a whole. People go to college to become more competitive in the job market. But if college is now free and degrees are easier to obtain, there's no way to discern who are the best candidates for these jobs, which would increase unemployment and make the degree nearly useless. If college is free, students will flood to enroll colleges like LSU and USC, which will create wait lists. People with money would become a lot more valuable now that nobody is paying tuition. People like Aunt Becky from Full House would not mind paying thousands of dollars to get ahead on those wait lists. And that would corrupt the college system even more, which brings me to my third and final point, which is retention rates. We need to focus on retention rates rather than free college. Instead of focusing on how to get more kids into college, let's focus on graduating the kids that are currently in college. Only 33.3% graduate in the designated time of 4 years, and only 57.6% graduate in 6 years. We need to fix graduation rates in college instead of shoving more kids into a broken system. So in conclusion, while free college might sound nice like a dream, in reality, it's a nightmare. So vote opposition.
In economics, there's this concept of a sunk cost. And it's essentially that if you have paid a cost for a benefit, you can sometimes reap more and more benefit without paying that cost again. And that's it's analogous to bringing more people into this room. If I was a professor here at McNeese and I was being paid to teach this class, we could fill up the other half of this room and it wouldn't cost McNeese any more money. Now, that concept is going to be amplified as technology increases. Right now, my wife is going to LSU to get her master's on the internet. And I think there's about 25 people in the online class, but they could easily have 1,000 people in that online class. Most of the tests are taken multiple choice, and a computer with those answers pre-programmed could actually test those people, and they read the same material and they would hear the same lectures. So expanding college education to bring more people in does not have the cost that people arguing against it generally portray. But the other side asked that we define exactly what we're saying. And I think that he criticized the word should and said that really you're saying that if you're arguing for it, you're saying that it must. That is exactly what we're arguing. We're saying that we must make college free. And the biggest reason for it is that other countries in the world are doing it. Right now, China has a strategic plan. It's called the 2050 plan. And it's their idea to become the leader in technology or artificial intelligence by the year 2050, to overtake the United States. That is going to have tremendous national security implications for us.
First, I would like to address what the opening speech of this debate did not address. In her speech, she said that these high school graduates would have good ACT and SAT scores, but they wouldn't have the funds to get them there. But if that was the case, they would have plenty of means to get grants, scholarships, or even TOPS, which she talked about in that very same speech. So that point is irrelevant. Moving on to Matt. Matt completely ignored all of our points in that debate. He basically just talked about why education is good, not whether it should be free or not. Second of all, he ignored all the definitions. Free, means free for everyone, including people who are not in school. And should means you have to provide a plan, which neither of them have. And Matt has also been using a lot of ifs in his speech. Like, if this happens, if that happens. We're not working in if. This is a plan-based debate. You need to work in definites. Ifs are relevant. Now, moving on to my speech. Building on what my teammate Leonard said, free does not mean free. The average student loan debt is about $28,500, and about 71% of students in college are in debt. That equates to about $1.2 trillion in taxes over a period of 10 years. That is a ridiculous amount to expect taxpayers to pay to fund these colleges, because without them, they would fail since they have no funding. Their plan, and an alternative might have been to tax the wealthy as was proposed by presidential candidate Elizabeth Warren, but there's a problem with that. According to the 16th Amendment, you can only tax the income of wealth. You cannot tax the reserves of wealth. So you can only tax people who are having an income, which, as you can see, most people in the U.S. do. Next, that essentially means, what the 16th Amendment essentially means is, like I said, you can only tax the income of money. So that means that teachers and graduates will also have to pay these taxes, pretty much recreating student loan debt through taxes. So it's essentially getting rid of a problem, then bringing it right back. And onto the teachers having to pay. Teachers are leaving at an alarming rate. 8% of teachers have left in the past decade. So increasing these taxes will only make the rate increase and make it even worse. So a lot of these colleges will be underworked and understaffed, and that is a huge problem. Now, on to Leonard's third point of retention rates. Like he said, a third of students do not pass on time. That means that 5.3 million students out of the 16 million enrolled in college do not pass on time. This is a problem that we need to fix. Free college will only crowd these colleges and make the problems worse. Students could fail classes multiple times and retake them because there is no cost to it. There's no cost in having to retake it. You can just do it over and over again, and you have no loss of anything except time. That is a real problem, because then you end up with underqualified people in the workforce. How would you like it if your doctor failed a class 5 times and was still working on it? That is a problem. That's why we need to fix these retention rates, and why college is a horrible idea, and why you should vote for the opposition.
I think the timer begins when I begin my presentation. Unless the rules have changed. Well, we're going to change it one more time. I learned that from Mr. Roche, thank you. You who has to go. Good evening, and thank you all for coming, and I'd like to thank the opposition for a wonderful presentation this evening. I always enjoy being with them. It's an honor to be on the other side and to have to respond and craft. So I want to start off with that, and I want to start off with my colleagues. They stated quite eloquently. It is a fundamental right to be able to go to college.
When we talk about free education, we're not talking about free guidelines. Let me be clear, Mr. Moderator. We're not talking about eliminating standards. We're talking about eliminating the burden caused by the lack of money. Now, please, don't let this team of naysayers redefine the debate to be why we cannot make this happen. The central question was, should college be free? And we all know, right here, that it should be free. We know that, don't we? Mr. Mitchell, I have some questions for you. You acknowledge that all people, regardless of race, gender, ethnicity, deserve to be treated equally, do you not?
I do acknowledge that.
You acknowledge that some people, despite their best efforts, can't afford college.
Yes, I do.
I guess I should continue. I mean, that pretty much ends it, doesn't it? Show of hands on the negative team. Who in here goes to public school? Who goes to public school? Okay. So you believe elementary school should be free? Yes? Okay. Do you think elementary school should be free? Do you think elementary school should be free?
I think that's irrelevant because we're talking about college.
This is cross-examination. It means I determine what's relevant. Do you think elementary school should be free? Do you think a kindergartner, if he doesn't have money in his pocket, should be denied the right to a kindergarten education? Yes or no?
I mean, you're not really paying for it, your parents are.
If the parents don't have money, should the kindergartner be allowed to attend kindergarten? Yes or no?
I don't really think so.
So middle school, same answer? If parents don't have money, should he be allowed to go to middle school? Or should he be denied entry at the door? Should he be denied entry because his parents don't have money? We'll determine what's relevant. How about a high school? If your friend shows up, you go to high school and his parents don't have money, should he be allowed in the charter school? Should he be allowed in the school? Same answer as middle school?
Like I'm saying, this is still irrelevant.
Okay. You acknowledge, though, that a college degree is the virtual equivalent of a high school degree. Correct? You acknowledge that?
Yep. I do not really acknowledge that because you're going to college for a higher education, and a high school degree is a lower education than college.
You said earlier that all people, regardless of race, gender, ethnicity, they should be treated equally, correct?
Yes, I did say that.
And you acknowledge that some people don't have as much money as others, is that correct?
Yes, I do acknowledge that.
And you acknowledge that money alone should not dictate one's right to an education, do you not?
I do acknowledge that.
People who have more money have a tendency to spend more money, isn't that correct?
If you have more money, you are spending a lot of money, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to use some of that money for a more relevant cause.
People with less money have a tendency to spend less money, correct?
Same reason.
Okay. And money and debt, that factors in to a college decision, does it not?
Money and debt does factor into a college decision, but it's the fact to the people that want to go to that college to make that decision.
Right. So the answer would be in the future, yes. National security, you agree knowledge is power, correct?
Yes.
What if America, you agree that if America right now was just full of cavemen and China was its current self, that we would be at a disadvantage? You acknowledge that?
Sure.
You acknowledge that the more educated you are, the more advanced you have a chance to become, correct?
Yes, I acknowledge that, but it's for the fact that if you're higher educated than another person, you should use that education for a greater cause.
You acknowledge that more access to higher education means more participation in the political system. You acknowledge that? Yes or no?
30 seconds.
I somewhat do acknowledge that.
You acknowledge that money should not determine your access to knowledge, correct?
I mean, money does not determine the access to your knowledge, but it's the fact what you do with that money. I mean, if you're using that money for a greater cause, it wouldn't matter. But if you're only using that money to get higher on a higher class of like a job listing, then you're not using that money that relevantly.
What if you have no money?
Then what would be the point of going to college if you couldn't pay off your debt?
I think that's the answer we're looking for. I'm ready.
Why do you believe college should be free?
Because I believe we all have a right, a fundamental right to education, and I believe as a nation it'll make it safer. I also believe it'll be cost effective, and I believe that right now the system is broken, and I think your team agrees with that point.
Please define college. Is it a 2-year school or are you talking about a 4-year school?
College is public universities, including 2-year associate degrees.
The should in the resolution suggest that free college is a right or a privilege.
Should suggest the definition of should.
Still have to answer the question.
Should is should. Repeat your question.
The should in the resolution suggest that free college is a right or a privilege.
We believe that free education is a right, not a privilege for the few.
So you're saying that it's a right for every American to have free college.
Yes.
Please define free as to whom it will be free and how long it will be free.
Repeat the question.
Please define free as to whom it will be free and how long it will be free.
Free will be to the person who's going to college, and for how long it will be available is the typical time frame it is, up to 5 years.
How will this be funded?
It'll be funded by the government.
Do you believe this initiative is an investment or expense?
I believe it's both.
So you're saying that you expect them to pay it back, or you want the government to fully pay for it?
I want the government to fully pay for it.
And you're saying it's an expense?
I'm saying it's an investment and an expense. Unless you think me paying for your education is not an investment, then it would only classify as an expense, which would be consistent with their team's suggestion that college is a bad idea.
Do you believe the people burdened with this cost of this initiative also share your belief?
Yes, my team especially.
So you're saying that people that don't believe in it will also have to pay for it?
Repeat the question, I'm sorry.
So you're saying that people that don't believe in it also has to pay for it?
Just like with the military. Meaning yes. Dad.
So if I don't believe it, I would have to pay for your belief?
That's right.
Does this initiative serve as just a great cause recruiting tool, or is there a retention benefit to it?
I didn't understand what you did the second word. I'm sorry, repeat the question.
Does this initiative serve as just a great cause recruiting tool, or is there a retention benefit to it?
The standards would be the same. You'd be expected to maintain the same standards that you currently have to maintain while you're in college, or you would be booted out and lose your opportunity. It's not there forever. We're not talking about removing standards. We're not talking about removing competition. We're simply talking about removing the burden caused by money.
Final speech for the opposition.
Before I begin, I would like to fix what my colleague said. We do believe college is good. Now to attack what you said. 1/3 of the population would graduate according to a 5-year limit. So now for my intro. Good evening. My name is Derek Williams. I will be representing the final speech for the opposition. I would like to give a blanket of thank yous to the judges, my opponents, and the audience for being here tonight. Now, as all of our judges well know, education is an expensive business. Any other expectation is not only improbable, it's impossible. Someone must bear the burden of our greatest investment, and someone must be expected to return its dividends. Thus, judges, we have 3 reasons upon why we won today's debate. First, it's worth noting that the only burden for my team was to prove that the affirmative did not uphold the resolution. I will prove that in 3 points. Point number 1, free never means free. At the point that someone is always paying for college, the affirmative cannot gain access to affirming that they make college free. They simply transfer the burden from the student to the public. This idea that seems to be a dream will surely turn into a nightmare. Which brings me to my second point. Ease never produces excellence. As a student athlete, we're all different in some way, but the end goal is the same. To work towards a better future and earn a scholarship. The key word here is earn. Next week, I'll be competing in a state track meet as a high school freshman. I have failed and made mistakes over and over again, but the weight of the challenge is what pushes me to become great. If you remove that weight by making college free, there's no end goal in why we work, why we run. There's nothing to work for. The reason that athletes train every day is because we accept the challenge and the weight that comes along with it. And for some of us, it's all we have. I have learned as a student athlete that difficulty does not always have to be deemed debilitating, but we can choose for it to be an asset in our development and to see it as a necessary step towards our greater achievements. Which brings me to my final point. Static accountability never produces superior achievement. Before we can affirm that college should be free, we must first ensure our ability to significantly increase achievement, which is ultimately determined by retention and graduation rates. As my colleagues stated before, a third of freshmen will not complete their sophomore year of college, even less going on to complete their degree. The affirmative at no point can explain why making college free depreciates this epidemic of those students not being retained. While we concede that at a later date, a conversation about free college could be plausible, currently, the most important issues are those surrounding the accountability for static retention rates. In closing, I would like to ask the panel of educators and administration one question. Do you believe that making college free will benefit students and your institutions? Do not flood the already flawed system. Thank you. Vote for the opposition.
As a former educator, I know that African American young men, specifically in middle and high school, often have incredible ideas, opinions about the world that don't often get heard by the majority of people because they don't know how to express themselves. So I want to thank the Bar Association and these incredible attorneys for sharing the stage with these young men and allowing them to express themselves before this audience, before Facebook, and everyone else that's going to see this debate. So we thank you so much for that. I'm not going to actually say the names of the people that voted because I don't want to have a fight in the parking lot. So we want to thank everyone who came up to the debate tonight as well. Thank you guys so much for being here and witnessing this amazing debate. I think we have maybe some future attorneys on this stage as well. One more time, I want to thank our judges as well for being with us tonight. All right, so I'm just going to say that we have a ballot and give you the name of the ballot. So I have one ballot for the negative. I have one ballot for the negative. I have one ballot for the negative. I have one ballot for the affirmative. I have one ballot for the affirmative. And I have one ballot for the affirmative. Now, you saw someone hand me the final ballot, and that person actually decided tonight's debate. The winner of tonight's debate in a 4-3 decision is the opposition.